Tengu, Japanese lit heavenly dog, or heavenly sentinel, are a type of legendary creature found in Shinto belief. They are considered a type of yokai, supernatural beings, or Shinto kami, gods or spirits. The Tengu were originally thought to take the forms of birds of prey and a monkey deity, and they were traditionally depicted with human, monkey, and avian characteristics. Saruta Hiko Okami is considered to be the original model of Konoha Tengu, a supernatural creature with a red face and long nose, which today is widely considered the Tengu's defining characteristic in the popular imagination. He is the Shinto monkey deity who is said to shed light on heaven and earth. Some experts theorize that Saruta Hiko was a sun god worshipped in the Ise region prior to the popularization of Amaterasu. Buddhism long held that the Tengu were disruptive demons and harbingers of war. Their image gradually softened, however, into one of protective, if still dangerous, spirits of the mountains and forests. Tengu are associated with the ascetic practice of shugendo, and they are usually depicted in the garb of its followers, the Yamabushi. The Tengu in art appears in a variety of shapes. It usually falls somewhere in between a large, monstrous bird and a wholly anthropomorphized being, often with a red face or an unusually large or long nose. Early depictions of Tengu show them as kite-like beings who can take a human-like form, often retaining avian wings, heads, or beaks. The Tengu's long nose seems to have been conceived in the 14th century, likely as a humanization of the original bird's bill. This feature allies them with the Saruta Hiko Okami, who is described in the 720s text, the Nin Shoki, with a similar nose measuring 7 handspans in length. 4 In village festivals, the two figures are often portrayed with identical red phallic nose mask designs. 5. Some of the earliest representations of Tengu appear in Japanese picture scrolls, such as the Tengozoshi Imeki painted c. 1296, which parodies high-ranking priests by endowing them the hawk-like beaks of Tengu demons. 6. Tengu are often pictured as taking the shape of some sort of priest. Beginning in the 13th century, Tengu came to be associated in particular with Yamabushi, mountain ascetics who practiced shugendo. 7. The association soon found its way into Japanese art, where Tengu are most frequently depicted in the Yamabushi's unique costume, which includes a distinctive headwear called the token and a pom-pom sash. 8. Due to their priestly aesthetic, they are often shown wielding the kakara, a distinct staff used by Buddhist monks called a shakojo in Japanese. Citation needed. Tengu are commonly depicted holding a magical feather fan, hokiwa. According to legend, Tengu taught Minamoto no Yoshitsune to fight with the war fan and the sword. 9. In folk tales, these fans sometimes can grow or shrink a person's nose, but usually they have attributed the power to stir up great winds. Various other strange accessories may be associated with Tengu, such as a type of tall one-toothed geta sandal, often called Tengu geta. The term Tengu and the characters used to write it are borrowed from the name of a fierce demon from Chinese folklore called Tiangu, though this still has to be confirmed. Chinese literature assigns this creature a variety of descriptions, but most often it is a fierce and anthropomorphous canine monster that resembles a shooting star or comet. It makes a noise like thunder and brings war wherever it falls. One account from the Shuyi-ji, a collection of bizarre stories written in 1791, describes a dog-like Tiangu with a sharp beak and an upright posture, but usually Tiangu bear little resemblance to their Japanese counterparts. 11. The 23rd chapter of the Nin Shoki, written in 720, is generally held to contain the first recorded mention of Tengu in Japan. In this account, a large shooting star appears and is identified by a Buddhist priest as a heavenly dog, and much like the Tiangu of China, the star precedes a military uprising. Although the Chinese characters for Tengu are used in the text, accompanying phonetic furigana characters give the reading as a Mutsutsune heavenly fox. N.W. de Visser speculated that the early Japanese meaning for the characters used to write Tengu may represent a conglomeration of two Chinese spirits, the Tiangu and the fox spirits called Huijing, before the nuances of meaning were expanded to include local Japanese kami, therefore the true Tengu in appearance 12. Some Japanese scholars have speculated that the Tengu's image derives from that of the Hindu eagle deity Garuda, who was pluralized in Buddhist scripture as one of the major races of non-human beings. Like the Tengu, the Garuda are often portrayed in a human-like form with wings and a bird's beak. The name Tengu seems to be written in place of that of the Garuda in a Japanese sutra called the Emyo Kyo, but this was likely written in the Edo period long after the Tengu's image was established. At least one early story in the Kenjaku Monogatari describes a Tengu carrying off a dragon, which is reminiscent of the Garuda's feud with the Naga serpents. In other respects, however, the Tengu's original behavior differs markedly from that of the Garuda, which is generally friendly towards Buddhism. De Visser has speculated that the Tengu may be descended from an ancient Shinto bird demon, which was syncretized with both the Garuda and the Tiangu when Buddhism arrived in Japan. However, he found little evidence to support this idea. 13. A later version of the Kujikai in ancient Japanese historical text writes the name of a Monozako, a monstrous female deity born from the god Susanoo, spat out ferocity with characters meaning Tengu deity. The book describes a Monozako as a raging creature capable of flight, with the body of a human, the head of a beast, a long nose, long ears, and long teeth that can chew through swords. An 18th century book called the Tengu Meijiko suggests that this goddess may be the true predecessor of the Tengu, but the date and authenticity of the Kujikai and of that edition in particular remain disputed. The Kenjaku Monogatari, a collection of stories published in the late Heian period, contains some of the earliest tales of Tengu already characterized, as they would be for centuries to come. These Tengu are the troublesome opponents of Buddhism who mislead the pious with false images of the Buddha, carry off monks and drop them in remote places, possess women in an attempt to seduce holy men, rob temples, and endow those who worship them with unholy power. They often disguise themselves as priests or nuns, but their true form seems to be that of a kite. 15. Throughout the 12th and 13th centuries, accounts continued of Tengu attempting to cause trouble in the world. They were now established as the ghosts of angry, vain or heretical priests who had fallen on the Tengu realm Tengudo. They began to possess people, especially women and girls, and speak through their mouths kitsunettes. Still, the enemies of Buddhism, the demons, also turned their attention to the royal family. The Kojiden tells of an empress who was possessed, and the Okagami reports that Emperor Sanjo was made blind by a Tengu, the ghost of a priest, who resented the throne. 16. One notorious Tengu from the 12th century was himself the ghost of an emperor. The Hojin Monogatari tells the story of Emperor Sutoku, who was forced by his father to abandon the throne. When he later raised the Hojin rebellion to take back the country from Emperor Go-Shujagawa, he was defeated and exiled to Sanukai province in Shikoku. According to legend, he died in torment, having swooned to haunt the nation of Japan as a great demon, and thus became a fearsome Tengu with long nails and eyes like a kite. 17. In stories from the 13th century, Tengu began to abduct young boys, as well as the priests they had always targeted. The boys were often returned while the priests would be found tied to the tops of trees or other high places. All of the Tengu's victims, however, would come back in a state near death or madness, sometimes after having been tricked into eating animal dung. 7. The Tengu of this period were often conceived of as the ghosts of the arrogant, and as a result, the creatures have become strongly associated with vanity and pride. Today, the Japanese expression Tengu, ni nao, becoming a Tengu, is still used to describe a conceited person. Forests. In the 1764 collection of strange stories Sanshu Kaiden, a tale tells of a man who wanders into a deep valley, while gathering leaves only to be faced with a sudden and ferocious hailstorm. A group of peasants later tell him that he was in the valley where the Guan live, and anyone who takes a single leaf from that place will surely die. In the Sozan Chamon Kishu written in 1849, the author describes the customs of the woodcutters of Mano province, who used a sort of rice cake called kuanmoki to placate the Tengu, who would otherwise perpetrate all sorts of mischief. In other provinces a special kind of fish called okos was offered to the Tengu by woodsmen and hunters in exchange for a successful day's work. 31 The people of Ishikawa Prefecture have until recently believed that the Tengu loathe mackerel, and have used this fish as a charm against kidnappings and hauntings by the mischievous spirits. 32. Tengu are worshipped as beneficial kami gods, or revered spirits, in various regions. For example, the Tengu Saburo of Izuna is worshipped on that mountain, and various others as Izuna Gongan, incarnation of Izuna, one of the primary deities in Izuna Shujin, which also has ties to fox sorcery and the Dakini of Tantric Buddhism. Izuna Gongan is depicted as a beaked, winged figure with snakes wrapped around his limbs, surrounded by a halo of flame, riding on the back of a fox and brandishing a sword. Worshippers of Tengu on other sacred mountains have adopted similar images for their deities, such as Sanjakubo or Akaiba Gongan of Akaiba and Doryo Gongan of Seijoji Temple in Odawara. Tengu appear frequently in the orally transmitted tales collected by Japanese folklorists. As these stories are often humorous, they tend to portray Tengu as ridiculous creatures who are easily tricked or confused by humans. Some common folk tales in which Tengu appear include the Tengu's magic cloak. Tengu no Kakrimino, a boy looks through an ordinary piece of bamboo and pretends he can see distant places. A Tengu, overwhelmed by curiosity, offers to trade it for a magic street cloak that renders the wearer invisible. Having duped the Tengu, the boy continues his mischief while wearing the cloak. Another version of this story tells of an ugly old man who tricks a Tengu into giving him his magical cloak, and causes mayhem for his fellow villagers. The story ends with the Tengu regaining the coat through a game of riddle exchange and punishes the man by turning him into a wolf. 34. The old man's lump removed. Kobu Tori Jisen. An old man has a lump or tumor on his face. In the mountains he encounters a band of Tengu making merry and joins their dancing. He pleases them so much that they want him to join them the next night, and offer a gift for him. In addition, they take the lump off his face, thinking that he will want it back, and therefore have to join them the next night. An unpleasant neighbor, who also has a lump, hears of the old man's good fortune and attempts to repeat it, and steal the gift. The Tengu, however, simply gives him the first lump in addition to his own, because they are disgusted by his bad dancing, and because he tried to steal the gift. 35. The Tengu's fan. Tengu no Hokiwa. A scoundrel obtains a Tengu's magic fan, which can shrink or grow noses. He secretly uses this item to grotesquely extend the nose of a rich man's daughter and then shrinks it again in exchange for her hand in marriage. Later he accidentally fans himself while he dozes, and his nose grows so long it reaches heaven, resulting in painful misfortune for him. 36. The Tengu's good. Tengu no Hayatan. A gambler meets a Tengu, who asks him what he is most frightened of. The gambler lies, claiming that he is terrified of gold or moki. The Tengu answers truthfully that he is frightened of a kind of plant, or some other mundane item. The Tengu, thinking he is playing a cruel trick, then causes money or rice cakes to rain down on the gambler. The gambler is of course delighted and proceeds to scare the Tengu away with the thing he fears most. The gambler then obtains the Tengu's magic good or another treasured item that was left behind. Tactics manga. features a Shinto priest spending his entire life searching for a Tengu, whom he names Haika, and another Tengu named Sujino. Each represents a different type of Tengu. Haika is a black Tengu and more powerful than white Sujino, who is noted to be a former human priest who grew too arrogant, and is worshipped as a mountain god. They appear as humans with wings for the most part.